but for all of the constituencies across Barbados. COVID destroyed the plans that we had for our country. COVID destroyed the plans that we had for our educational system. It destroyed the plans we had for health care. It destroyed the plans we had for social services. Our economy is expected this year, and I leave that for the economists to talk about, but we expect to lose several $100 million in revenue. Now, in practical terms, if your household lost a breadwinner or lost $1,000 a month or even $100 a month, that will have an impact. But just imagine a country like ours at a time when we are just coming out of a crisis, that COVID could come and deal us such a blow. But you know what? It is a testimony to the leadership of this country that we have prevailed as we have in the COVID crisis. I don't care what the Centers for Disease Control say. I don't care what anybody says. How we have run our affairs during this COVID deserves a round of applause. And it was new ground for us. It was new ground for us. We tried to work out when was the last time we ever had to impose a curfew in Barbados. And Johnny Cheltenham, who is the second oldest living member of the BLP, that has black hair. Johnny figures it would have had to have been around the time of World War II. World War II, probably. So the very notion of curfews and shutdowns were things that were completely alien to us. And if you wonder why the Attorney General is going to this, I'll get to it in a minute. And with those difficult times, I believe that the Barbadian public held faith with us, cooperated with us, because they understood that what we were about was for the greater good. And that is a reflection of what they told us at the polls in 2018, that they expected us as a new administration that whatever we did, we would do it for the greater good. And COVID has helped us to prove that that mission is at the center of our thinking and of our being. Now, we had a throne speech last week, and you know, we always talk about being accountable, going back to the people, telling the people what you've been doing and why you're doing these things. And because COVID has done so much damage to us as a country, and because we've had to reorient all of our plans and our decision making, it was prudent, therefore, for the Prime Minister to prorogue Parliament and to come back to the country and say, this is where we are. We have to now chart a different path, and we feel it is important to bring the people of the nation into our confidence and tell them what we are looking to do and why we're looking to do it. And so for those people who wonder what was the point of the throne speech, it was exactly that. To put where we are in context and to try to explain to the country that we now have to take fresh guard as we go into the second half, if you want to call it that, of our term. And I believe that the throne speech has done an excellent job of explaining to Barbadians what our mission is as we proceed, as we progress. Now, elements of it will be rolled out as the days go by. But I want you to acknowledge, or I want you to think with me and to recognize with me that there is something in that throne speech for everybody. And there's a reason why we took that approach. And the reason is that we cannot, you know, the mantra of the Barbados Party has always been, no one should be left behind. No one should be left behind. And therefore, whether it is trying to rescue our hotels so that they can keep Barbadians employed, whether it is bolstering up the infrastructure of the Scotland district, whether it is creating job opportunities for people in the COVID relief fund, whatever it is, It is for the purpose of making sure that our social capital remains intact. And that's not an easy task to do at a time when your revenues are down. But I want you to stay the course with us. I want you to have the confidence of knowing that this administration that brought us safely over the last 2 years and brought us safely through COVID thus far is well and truly able to take us safely the rest of the way. Now, there have been some issues that remain constant. And some of those issues are the responsibility of the Attorney General, and some I will speak about briefly this evening. But to relate to you two elements of the throne speech that I think are benefiting from a significant amount of social dialogue is the whole issue of where a referendum sits in relation to some of the things that we've done. Now, we committed in our manifesto that we would take fundamental issues to the Barbadian public so that they can participate in the decision making. In fact, so that they can help us to decide or even decide for us. And all of a sudden, the Prime Minister having announced that we are going to go republic, something that had been announced as far back as Oinatha, something that was recommended by the Henry Ford Commission, something that Barbadians know in their heart of hearts to be the right thing to do. There's a class of people now clamoring, saying, but that should go to referendum. I came across a saying the other day that if it is the right thing to do, you can't do it soon enough. We have talked and talked and talked about referendum, and we have talked and talked and talked about removing the Queen from our head of state. The time has come for us to act. And I can see no good reason why we should go to referendum on something that we are almost all of the same mind on. But if you were in any doubt, let me share with you one little thing that you might not know. Our current ambassador to Washington is a man named Noe Lynch. You know him as Barney Lynch. Do you know that before our country, Barbados, was able to appoint Barney Lynch to be ambassador to Washington, guess what we had to do? We had to write the Queen. We had to write Her Royal Highness and say to her that the government of Barbados proposes to appoint Noe Lynch to be our ambassador, not hers, our ambassador to Washington, and can we have her permission to do so? And as I understand it, she then had to write Donald Trump, who then had to write back to her, and then she had to write back to us. Barbados became independent in 1966. What is it that we are afraid of? And I don't support going to any referendum on that because I think that the response of every single Barbadian is going to be a resounding yes. The other issue which concerns us, and you know we spoke about it during the elections, we spoke about the issue of recreational cannabis, and somehow there are some commentators who, they like to commentate, but they don't listen. I don't know how you can commentate, offer good commentary if you don't listen. In the throne speech, we reflected on the fact that in every single year, and in last year the number was over 4,000, in every single year we have about 4,000 drug cases going to the magistrate's court. The vast majority of them are for people who have a spliff, 2 spliffs. The vast majority. That takes up police time, it takes up magistrate's court time. But perhaps the worst part of it, the very worst part of it, is the fact that a young man or woman who is caught with a joint, a roach, with a spliff, is then tainted as being a criminal in circumstances when, as a country, our attitude towards them should be trying to steer them away from that path, not through a penalty, but through guidance and counseling. It ties up our police resources that we could be better using for other purposes. It ties up our court resources that then forces the magistrate to be dealing with a lot of small cases when they could be dealing with major stuff. And so we have decided that there is a clear distinction between allowing recreational use of cannabis and putting a different punishment regime in place. And I think it's important for me as Attorney General to offer this explanation to you. What we have done in relation, or what we intend to do in relation to people found with small quantities of cannabis, is not to say it is all right. It's not that. It still remains a crime. But what we're saying is that instead of dealing with it the way in which we deal with it now, we're going to take a totally different approach and refer those people to counseling. They will not have to apply for the expungement of a criminal record, something that has bedeviled a lot of our young men and women who want a job, but they can't get a job because they have a criminal record for having a spliff. I've never smoked marijuana in my life. I don't intend to know. Come too far. But today we have our young people who suffer because we reject them in simple ways, and then we wonder how they fall into the clutches of gangmen. Well, if for having a small quantity of marijuana, we label you a criminal, the police drag you off to the court says guilty, you are now a convict, and then of course you can't get a job because of your criminal record, into whose arms do we expect them to run? We have forced them not to smoke marijuana, but by adopting a stringent penal response, we have forced them into becoming criminals. And then we wonder why they're on the block. They're on the block because they can't get work, and they can't get work because they have a criminal record. Now, what could be so wrong with us saying possession of marijuana is a crime? But if you're caught with small quantities, instead of dealing with you as a criminal, we're going to try to deal with you as a human being and steer you away from that. The other issue that has been generating a lot of discussion has been that of civil unions. And I know that there are Barbadians who, some will be uncomfortable with the direction that we've decided to go in. Some may want the opportunity to think it through. Some may feel that we're just dead wrong. And everybody in this democracy has the right to their views. But as the person responsible for defending the legal rights of Barbadians, I say to you that there is a discrimination issue. And we live not in a bubble by ourselves, but we are part of a greater world. And it's not about trying to fit in with anybody else or adopting anybody else's standards. It's not about that. For me, as Attorney General, I recognize that there's one thing about the law: it must be constantly applied. It can't be applied to you because you're good looking, to you because you're tall, to you because of your sexual preference, and to you because of yours. It has to be constantly applied. That is why it is called the rule of law. And there are some things that we have always held sacred, but the courts have from time to time reviewed them. We have always held that the mandatory death penalty was sacred until the case of Nerve and Severin in the CCJ only 2 years ago. And that said, you can have the death penalty as being sacred, but you can only employ it if it is not mandatory. So all laws are open to review. And in relation to discrimination, I believe that there is a strong issue that we have to tackle. Now, the Prime Minister, through the throne speech, has said, on the matter of gay marriage, we will go to referendum, and we will abide by the decision of the Barbadian public. But gay marriage and civil unions are different things. Think about it. Do you remember in 1979, well, you got to be of a certain age group to remember 1979 when the Family Law Act was passed. Johnny remembers it then. In fact, he should be giving this speech, not me. In 1979, when the Family Law Act was passed, and Henry Ford then wanted to recognize common law unions, there was nobody who was arguing but a common law union and a marriage are the same thing. In fact, they were arguing, how dare you elevate common law unions to being recognized by law? Because by doing that, you are legalizing people living in sin. That was the debate. Not a fella has ever argued that a common law union is the same thing as a marriage. In fact, they like to pretend that one is on the other side of the wall. Ain't the same thing. Not the same thing. Why is it so hard to accept that the concept of a civil union is a different thing to a marriage? In law, the same principle applies. Now, this is probably not the time, and I only got 10 more minutes. So maybe afterwards we could huddle and talk about it, because I really would be happy to talk it through with those of you who want to hear what our views are. But the reality for us is this. And at the time when we passed the welcome stamp, and we said we are going to recognize people of same-sex unions, a whole set of people clamored, oh, look, we want to go in, we want to do it, we want to do it, we want to do it. Now, I do not know of any immigration officer who ever turned back two people at Grantley Adams because they may have been a same-sex union. I don't know of any immigration officer or any immigration minister who turned back people from the port because there were two men or two women holding hands. I went to St. George's Boys' School, and it would be invidious of me to call names. But a person who will go down as the finest primary school teacher ever in Barbados, taught infants A and infants B, and lived with a man in Airy Hill. Oh, you thought I wasn't from St. George? I tell you, I went to St. George's Boys' School.
I do.
But you could find no better teacher. No better teacher to prepare young minds. So we have a lot of values, and values are important things. Values are important things, but as Attorney General, I have to defend the right of every Barbadian man or woman to pursue their choice, because I have to defend the right of you to pursue yours. Now, over time, I believe that people will become more and more comfortable with the idea. There are many societies have gone in this direction, and they haven't fallen apart. No country has collapsed because they decided to go the route of civil union. We just need to be a little more tolerant. Now, in the 6 minutes I have left, I had wanted to say a few things about the portfolio that the Prime Minister has entrusted me with. And I can say it briefly. In the throne speech, we said that we will have no tolerance for sexual offenses. We will have no tolerance for domestic violence. We will have no tolerance for homicides, no tolerance for firearm offenses. I had the biggest smile in my life, and for those of you who know me, I always smiling. So if you could think of a bigger smile than the one that I currently have, I had one. Mr. Justice Carlisle Graves told me that he had 48 firearm offenses set down for trial between last week and the end of the year. That pleased me. 48 trials dealing with firearms between last week and the end of the year, and I hope to God that he gets every single one of them done. For the first time, we have 5 high court judges dealing with nothing other than criminal matters. Now, for those of you, there are times when you even exceed your own expectations. If you look at the manifesto says we will appoint an additional 2 temporary judges. I don't know, maybe we were a little bit conservative. We said we would appoint 2 temporary judges. We appoint 7, not 2, because it was obvious to us that 2 could never help to ease the backlog that we were faced with. So we appointed 7, 5 of whom are now dedicated to doing criminal cases. When we came to government, there were over 1,000 indictable matters. Over 1,000 indictable matters that were waiting to be tried in the High Court. When in God's earth could 2 High Court judges ever get through 1,000 matters? Not possible. But the opposition wants to talk about crime and convey the impression that this administration is doing nothing. They let the cat get out the bag. It's harder to get things back in the bag than to get them out, Let me remind you that when we came to government, because we're talking about firearms, the firearms were coming into Barbados because we had no working scanner. Well, it worked. 1 day out of 30. No working scanner to be able to scan the containers and packages coming in. So you had to check them manually, but there's so many coming in, you couldn't check all. I believe that I can tell you now safely so that you understand the nature of what we're facing. I got a report last year that 18 high-power rifles, 18, not packers, not pipe guns, high-power rifles. The people who into guns will call them high cyclic weapons, which means they shoot enough bullets in a minute or in a second. 18 of those big fellas were seized in the United States on their way, not to St. Lucia, not to Guyana, seized on their way to Barbados. And if there is 18 that were seized on their way to Barbados, you must then begin to understand the nature of the problem that we're dealing with. But we don't throw our hands in the air and complain. Or enough used to say, face it and fix it. So we bought a new scanner. And put other things in place. I have committed to the Royal Barbados Police Force that by the time we leave office, they will be the best equipped police force for its size anywhere in the world. And we've already begun to deliver that. But that is not a Dale Marshall thing just to make him popular. In our covenant of hope, we committed that citizen safety and security would have the first call on our national resources. Now just imagine that. Even before we came to government, we understood the importance of citizen safety and security, because if our citizens are not safe in their homes, then the economy is irrelevant. The economy is irrelevant. And we've stayed true to that particular commitment. We are giving the police force everything that it needs to be able to do the job. But the one thing we can't give them? The one thing a government cannot give the police force is information, is evidence. We can give them all the equipment they want, but I want to say to you in the last minute or two that the success of the police force depends on every single one of us. I can't stress it enough. You see, and I think sometimes we're a little unfair to the police, And I can tell you that they work hard. we call the police and we expect that they're going to show up quick, 20 minutes, because the station just there. Nobody ever realizes that the police already have 4 or 5 calls ahead of you, or that they might be dealing with a serious incident somewhere else, so they can't get to you right at the same time. And there's some things I will not go into, but I want you to purge yourself of the idea that a police station has 40 and 50 police sitting down in it at any time waiting to come and do the people's business. It doesn't work that way. Do a quick little bit of maths. They got something named vacation, and police take vacation. And they have shifts. So the ones who are not on vacation get divided between 3 shifts. So you begin to work the numbers. You got 1,200 police. And then, of course, some police are in administration in other areas, so they're not going to be on the road. And then there are some in special units. They're the ones who work 24 hours a day, every day of the week, dealing with the things that you don't want to hear about. But then we somehow feel that something happens, and we run and call the police, and a miracle is supposed to appear. Now, let me give credit. I know that this is being streamed live, so let the world hear that we are very fortunate in Barbados to have a first-class police force. I know that in recent times there have been some claims about police harassment and police unfairing people and so on. I can say to you that we have put in place the purchasing arrangements to purchase at least 200 body cams. Body cams is short for body cameras. And we've said to the police, this protects you and it protects the people that you go to deal with. Because when you have on your body cam, they could say, he come and kicked down my door, but the video will show what was the truth. So that is a measure that we are putting in place to deal with the issue of accountability. And accountability will always be important. But remember, please, that you and I, we each have a role to play in helping the police deal with these things. Because when you call the police after the crime has already taken place, not much you could tell them then. But before, you can tell them that you see a fellow walking at the road and he had a gun in the pocket. You can tell them that you see somebody behaving suspicious. I'm not asking you to behave like a police state and be calling and saying, you know, my neighbor beside the yard and I see put sand up in roof. That's not what we're about. But I just want to underscore that in order to help the police to do the job that you want them to do, you have to play a role in it. Mr. Chairman, I know that it is 2 minutes after 6. If Glenn don't want to speak, I could keep talking, but I have a feeling that you really want to hear the man with 26 years not out. Glenn, thank you ever so much for being the best member of Parliament a person could want. You could tell them that. Somebody asked me if I plan on running in St. George. I said, what do you mean? You want me left St. Joseph? I said, well, I don't know about the election in St. George. What are you talking about? Anyway, Glenn, as I said, thank you for being among the world's finest members of Parliament. I hope that the opportunity arises for us to, in a permanent way, to commemorate the contribution that you have made in this country. I don't know, maybe I wouldn't like to rename Charles Road Bridge, but maybe we could change Gun Hill to Glen Hill. It's close enough. It's close enough to his home. Thank you ever so much, and God bless.
Let us really applaud the Attorney General on the sterling effort he's making. Another good St. George man. And while I'm at it, let me recognize a friend and as I understand it, President-designate of the Senate.
Remember your name?
Mr. Reginald Farley,
Another St. George man.
another St. George man. And let us also recognize a man from all the way in the north of Barbados, one Peter Phillips, the Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Agriculture. We have already recognized our chairman and the leader, Ms. Kay McConney, Minister Kay McConney. And let us now recognize one of our stalwarts, a lady I've known since I first met in 1977. Yes, 1977. We were both teachers at the time. I think she is still a teacher. I am no longer a teacher. But the minister from St. Thomas, ladies and gentlemen. I saw somewhere in the back another minister.
The speaker there. Huh? The speaker is there.
Oh, let us also recognize the speaker of His Honor. His Honor, the Speaker. Mr. Holder. I think I saw Minister Sandra Husbands. Outside is Mr. Ronald Topping. Another 26-year-old veteran, Ronald Topping, entered Parliament the same day as Glenn Arley Clark. And we have with us the Minister of Agriculture, Indar Veer, on the outside as well. And I saw another senator, Senator Crystal Haynes. Is she around? Yes, congratulations and continue the good work. She is a really feisty young lady in the Senate. I listen to her often and she fights. Keep it up, good work. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades all, it is the time to introduce you to the man of the moment, my friend, Glenn Arley Clark, a St. George man.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Nigel. I would like to say thank you to the St. George family and thanks to the Barbados Labour Party's family. Thanks to my colleagues from Parliament, my colleagues from the constituency of St. George, North and South and across Barbados. Ladies and gentlemen, and of course, I have a lot of children here tonight. I have family here tonight. I want to thank you. I want to also thank the executive, the new executive, and I hope that they work very hard in the coming months because we still have a lot of work to do, especially at this time, COVID. I would like to thank the outgoing executive and those persons who have worked hard over the past year, especially the last 6 months, to ensure that the most vulnerable of our people receive some kind of assistance. I have seen a number of our people rose to the occasion, and you have done very well. I want to thank all those who have donated to help the business community, as well as those persons across St. George and across Barbados who have pulled out from their pockets money and resources to help the people of Barbados. I want to single out the Sandy Lane Trust, who have come forward and have helped us in a very meaningful way. Without that, many persons would have starved in this country. And they continue to help. They continue to help. I want to thank them. I want to say tonight that it is 26 years this month I came to office. I was elected on the 6th of September, 1994, 26 years ago. And I must say that in the last year or so, it has been very strenuous. The last year has been taxing. 2020 will go down in history as a year that we must always remember, but it was very stressful. It was a year that we had to put all of our resources, not only here in Barbados, but the world. The world was tested. Many of our friends, especially in the Apple, have lost their lives. Many families have tested positive for COVID. We have to keep praying for those people. You have to keep praying for those families who have left behind. But I want to say to you tonight that I joined the Barbados Labour Party well over 40 years ago. At that time, there were very few young people. I must recognize the work of Sir Richard Cheltenham, a man who I've looked up to over the years. He was around with Tom Adams, Henry Ford, and Delilah Bradshaw. I don't see my friend Delilah, but I heard that he was here somewhere. My friend. I want to thank those old supporters of the Barbados Labour Party who are still around, who have gone on, who have meant so much to me over the years. I have learned so much growing up in the party at a young age. And that's one of the reasons I always felt, and still feel, that young people ought to join a political party of their choice. You learn so much. This party has given me great hope over the years. It has given me almost everything that I have experienced. This Barbados Labour Party is the greatest political institution in this Caribbean. I do not know if I would have done anything else. I do not know if I would have done anything else. I came to serve, and of course, as Sir Richard always reminds me, the greatest honor you can ever have is to serve your people. The greatest honor. And I believed that when I was elected to St. George over the years, it was an honor. And I want to thank the people of St. George North over and over and over again. Because it was an honor to serve the people. And I tell you that I first ran in 1991, and that was a very interesting year. And of course, you know why I came forward? Because friends like my good colleague over there, Bull Adamson, my friend from, I guess we went to school together. I'm just a few years older than he is. My friend, and Coolbird, my friend, and some of the others in here, Jazz, and Clement. That we discussed over and over again what representation means to the people of Barbados, what it is, how important it is. And in those days, in our days growing up, you had people like Hoppin and Lowe. And we felt as young people at the time that these people were bare jokers, that they did not represent the interests of poor people. And on the St. Jude's step, many nights after progressive meeting, or after a game of dominoes or cricket, we discuss politics of the day. And it was on those occasions that the people of St. Jude's especially felt that I should join a political party. In those years, I want to confess that I used to support the policies of Barbados because I thought that they were very progressive in those days. Free secondary education, school meals. I've supported those policies. But when Tom Adams and his team came in the 70s, Nigel Barra came to my home. And at the same time of the Rishi Haynes, they both turned up hours apart. Rishi said to me, I want you to join me. I went to one meeting of Rishi Haynes and could not stomach the work of the dams. I must tell you. I could not stomach because all of it was saying to us, this is what we have to do in order to trick the people. We need to fool them. We want to say something to them. And at that first meeting, I left because they conceptualized something very nasty of what my friend Jack Hodel will always remember. It was at that meeting that they conceptualized the phrase Jack Idle. And I can see where this team was going. I went to Nigel Bar a couple days after, and from then in the 70s, was working with Tom Adams doing research. I remember when Tom Adams delivered the 1976 budget speech immediately, because I was a young research fellow at the time, still at university, doing political science. And it was there that I did research. And I was writing for the party at the time. After that, Tom Adams saw me, and I went to Toronto as vice consul and liaison officer. In fact, I saw some things in the papers today. I did not know that they know all these things about me. I did not know. Some of it is factual, some is not. But I want to say to you, young people, join the Barbados Labour Party at this time. So that by 1989, when they came back here from Toronto, the people of St. George wanted somebody that could represent them, to help them, to stop poor people from being poor. And I came forward. I lost my first election in 1991 because I believe we were not as organized. And both myself, Ronald Toppin, he's over there, my good friend, Ronald Toppin. Good friend. He's like a brother to me as well. His mother, I call her my mother. She is a decent, well-respected woman. And Mayor Motley, we lost marginally. I lost by a mere just over 100 votes. Toppin lost by just over that. But we were young persons, but not as organized. And Owenatha took us and helped us, myself, Toppin, and Mayor, President Prime Minister. And he showed us that if you work hard and if you organize, you will succeed. And we did just that. And in 1994, I won the seat by my first outing. I got 2,800 votes, 56.4%, against a lady called Antoinette Thompson. 1999 was a good year. We worked hard in those years, and it moved to 79% against a Patrick Carter. And in 2003, I got percentage of 65% of the vote in those years. And then people thought that Colin Spencer was the greatest DLP candidate at the time, but he got beat worse than Patrick Carter. We got 70% of the votes in those years. Colin Spencer only got 30% of the votes. My friend Sept came up in 2013, sorry, and he got less than 40% of the vote. I got 60%. And in 2018, my constituents and my good friend Teddy Howard, I don't know, I haven't seen Teddy here tonight. He's here? Teddy said to me, we got to ensure that this man loses his deposit. No man has been able to run against you twice. So we have to make sure he lost his deposit. And I must say that Teddy is a fortune teller, because in 2018, we got 81% of the votes. The Democratic Labour Party got only 12% of the vote that year, 12.6%. Now, you don't see my friend Duguid here, but Duguid is the guy who carries, he's outside. But Duguid furnished us in the back. My good friend Duguid is a numbers man. And he furnished us with a lot of information, and of course my son Shane, thanks to the information. But all the candidates who ran in that 2 years ago lost their deposit in St. George North. I want to thank the good people of St. George North for ensuring that in 2018, I got 80% of the votes. And of course, we work as a team. Dwight, and I haven't seen Dwight, must be somewhere around here. Dwight got around 81% of the votes too. And of course, the leader of this country. And we did very well. And one lady said to me in Bel Air, he said, Mr. Clark, what more do you want? What more do you want? I mean, you win 6 seats. What more, 6 times, what more do you want? Another man said to me, Glenn Clark, you can dead in Parliament. I want you to die in Parliament. Are you serious? When people heard this news today that was broken in the papers, people in St. Jude's cried. Where is he going? You know? But I want to say that I really enjoyed Parliament. I really enjoy Parliament. You've got to enjoy Parliament. There are many parliamentarians who come to office that do not enjoy Parliament, you know. I want to tell parliamentarians this, huh? Enjoy Parliament. Turn up for Parliament early. Research. Follow the debates. I must confess that there's one thing that made me feel very badly in Parliament. I almost vomit. I felt so bad one day in Parliament that I could not restrain myself. And if I tell you what it was, you'll be surprised. I can tell you. In 2016, 17, somewhere around there, when the Democratic Labour Party was in office, Ronald Jones. Sorry, Ronald Jones. Because you were not the minister then. I'm so accustomed to calling him Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones brought an amendment to Parliament to abolish tuition fees at tertiary institutions. That was the worst day of my life. I could not believe, and none of the Democratic Labour Party saw this. It was the worst time of my life. I could not say, I spoke that day. And the records will show that the Democratic Labour Party abandoned the philosophy of their leader. There's nothing more the Democratic Labour Party can tell us. They abandoned the philosophy, the very philosophy of their founding fathers. And they felt very badly about that. I want to say that I felt badly about that. But I felt equally strong and happy when the Barbados Labour Party was returned in 2018 that we restored tuition fees at the tertiary institution. I want to place on record tonight that any political party that ever was so stupid to abolish tertiary education or health service do not deserve your vote. Do not deserve your vote. The Democratic Labour Party cannot muster a platform in St. George at all, at any time, because the people of St. George should pickle them. You cannot abolish tertiary education and health services and then come back and tell us that we must forgive you in 2 or 3 years. We can't. And as I said, I want to thank Santia, my dear niece Santia. She called me Uncle Glenn. I don't see her here. But Santia and the Barbados Labour Party must be thanked over and over again. Thank you. Santia is there. But I want to say to you, you all do not understand what this means to the ordinary man and woman in the street, you know. Many students have now gone back to university. Many students have now gone back to the university. And they know that under the Barbados Labour Party they have hope. They know that. And I want to say to you that with those, my good friend Delisle Bradshaw, of course, Brady was one of my campaign managers. He fought for me. I remember at St. Augustine School, when he first was nominated, he fought for me. He told the leadership of the party, if it's not Glenn Clark, it is not me. It was he who encouraged Tom Adams too, along with Sir Richard and Sir Louis, that I should go up to Canada at the time. And I want to thank them from my heart, who will remain my great friends. So I want to say to you that with the Barbados Labour Party, you have hope. You have great hope. Now, we have done a lot of work over the years, not only across in St. George, but of course Barbados. I told you about my worst nightmare in Parliament, and that's true. What I am saying to you is my truth from heart. My greatest moment, though, was when we did the amendment to the Tenantries Freehold Purchase Act in 2000, around 2000. One of the greatest moments I had was when myself and the present Prime Minister encouraged the Cabinet of the day to amend the Tenantries Freehold Purchase Act to give urban and private tenantry the right to buy their land at $2.50 a square foot. Because we felt, and I want to say to you, the people, the young people especially, that we believe in our heart that coming out of the disturbance of the 1937 riots, the right to own land was important. And we saw the tenantries program as one of the most progressive piece of legislation ever to put on the statute book of this country. And we amended it to help urban tenantries, to help private tenantries. And I want to say that the Barbados Labour Party, the present administration, must continue assiduously to ensure that persons who have been living on their land for more than 5 years receive the conveyance. It is right for us to do. Any person who wants to come to office as a representative must understand in their heart the importance of the 1937 riots. You must understand that, what it is. And that's why ONF have always said that parliamentarians must come to power, come to office to stop poor people from being poor. And that's what we have to do. Never forget where you've come from. Always. And that's important. And that's why over the past 24, 26 years, I am proud to say, very proud, that when Arthur once said to me, he was my good friend, he came to this school hall and said some awful things about me. I will remind you something what he said. But I want to say to you tonight, that he said to me one day driving through St. Peter, man, I'm going to do my best to ensure that the people of St. Peter are properly looked after, and they're going to do whatever I have to do. Now that the Prime Minister here, now I was just at the time parliamentary secretary, and I said to myself, who tell him to say so? But you know, I can look after St. George. And when we won in 1994, I said I was the parliamentary secretary in Ministry of Housing with special responsibility for housing. And over the years, we have acquired about 5 housing areas in St. George North. Constant, Phase 1 and 2, Odals, Parish Land, Flat Rock, Moonshine, Cottage Groves, Cottage Retreat, Appleways, and we bought Low Estate Tenantry as well. We did all that. Over 1,000 housing solution. 1,000 housing solution. Because we did not start on our laurels. We moved forward quickly as a government in 1994. You see? And we were able to sell Low Estate Tenantry at 10 cents a square foot. We also provided playing field. The Barbados Labour Party did this. We provide floodlit playing field at the Glebe and also at James Bryan's complex. Provided fields at Newbury, Flat Rock, Sweetville, St. Jude's. Provided better roads all across St. George. And I must tell you that David Simmons, Sir David, once said to me, boy, he's a constituent too. I'm sure he may be listening tonight. But he said to me, he took up a brochure. Now, every year I publish a brochure of what we have done. MPs must publish a brochure. If you haven't done nothing, you can't say nothing. So every MP must do something in his constituency. All politics is local. You must fight for your constituency. And Sir David told me, man, we can't understand what happened in St. Thomas at all. But when you look at your brochure, because he's a constituent, and they got all the things that you have acquired in new playing field. And I begged him in 1998 to do the Valley Resource Center, the Civic Center, which include the police outpost, the community center, and the post office. And he said to me, man, if I knew that you had got so much, I would have diverted this here somewhere else. I tell him too late. Too late. But we now have a police center, and I'm very glad to see Dame Billy here. Dame Billy. And I'll tell you later about her father. But I want to say to you that we were able to do it because we stood up for what was right. We also did the market at the Glebe. So we were working. Years ago, I don't know how maybe some of you may be too young to hear about a man called Dowding. Dowding, in those old days, since the 40s, I saw a manifesto of the Conservative, some way, promised the people of, and they voted for them because, you know, there's something, the Conservative had a way of getting poor people to vote for them too, you know. The people of Low Estate voted for the Conservatives. You know that, Sir Richard? And the people of Low Estate voted for Dowding because Dowding had the factory down there. Dame Billy will know. She used to be in St. George regularly. But he promised to put a road from Erie Hill right to Low Estate. I said, we don't want a road. We want to walk over a bridge. People must get from across that big gully. And I implored the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development to construct a bridge, a small walkover bridge that costs only maybe less than $100,000. Tonight, we have a bridge, a walkover bridge at Erie Hill, thanks to the insight of the Barbados Labour Party. And we also did one at Bel Air as well. You see? We have done a lot of work in St. George. But there's still a lot of things still to be done. We still have a few roads to be done. And I am conscious of the fact that we have to do it. We still have to do the pavilion at the Glebe. And I'm happy to say, I don't see the Minister of Sports here, my friend Dwight. Dwight is here. Dwight is a St. George man. He ought to be inside. But Dwight and I went to the Glebe only yesterday. Dwight Sutherland, a man of the people. Dwight and I went to the Glebe several times. Dwight still plays cricket, or he attempts to play cricket now. But Dwight, as new Minister of Sports, went to the Glebe playing field. The guys still play cricket there, but there's no pavilion. And Dwight has promised that he will start the pavilion because I told him that that has to be done. So the pavilion at the Glebe must be done. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mayor Morley. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I was saying that Dwight and I went to the Glebe and we promised that we will do the Glebe pavilion. And there are other things that we have to do over the next course of the next 2 years and 5 years, 8 years. So it is incumbent of us to elect the Barbados Labour Party. We still have work to be done at the Olders Glen, the Sir Optimus Village to be done. We must look at the Hamlin's land, which have been acquired since 2002 for housing. I want the Minister of Housing, my friend Duguay, to know this. And of course, there are still a few tenantry roads that must be done. My brother Cleveland told me that up to 2008 we were doing so well in St. George. But of course, the last 10 years we did not do very much in St. George because the Democratic Labour Party did nothing for us. A pavilion that was left since 2007 is still there. That's why Dwight has to do it. You understand what we told? Dwight have to do it. But the last minister also went with me. John King, my friend John King. I have a lot of respect for him. He went, but of course, the technicians in some ministries sometimes overpower the minister. Ministers must act. Sometimes it is difficult, but you must act. Say, I need this. And I'm happy to say that since 2007, the records in the Ministry of Health will show that the first Minister of Health in an adult government, sovereign government, was Mr. Miller, Freddie Miller. I don't know how many of you know Freddie Miller. Freddie Miller was one of the finest Minister of Health we ever had. You know why? It was he who started the QEH. Y'all know that? Y'all don't know that? And let me say this to you. My father was a fine tailor, if not the finest tailor in Barbados. He was a fine tailor. It was he who had the contract to tile the hospital. So as a young boy, I used to count all the tiles up in there, tiling. And I have recommended that the Glebe Polyclinic should be renamed after Freddie Miller. Let me clap for that. It's a must. Since 2007, Billy was in the cabinet at the time. Damn, me Billy. And I have asked the Prime Minister, please remember what we have agreed to. And she has also agreed to that. I want to thank her for that. But there's still other things to be done. We still want to see not only the health service, but there are two roundabouts that was supposed to be named after Jack Hodel and Louis Tull. Those two fine men. So we want that to be done. And I want to also say that we are strong in St. George. We are strong. We want to thank the private sector who have done a lot of work. St. George North is the finest constituency in Barbados. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, St. George North is strong. And the South too, but I want to say the St. George people have done me proud. I want to say happy to thank them. We have Charles Road Bridge. We have also Lower State Private Sector Development. Fine. We have a little problem there. I see Mr. Ian Webster in the audience. He has been complaining about certain things down there, but it has been abated now, and I want to thank him. The Gun Hill development is still to be done, and that is under the trust. But I want to also highlight tonight that the BLP government, when in office, has made Barbados strong. We now have new buses. We have new buses after 10 years. New buses. We have new garbage trucks. Right? I want to say that I believe that the Barbados Labour Party government is the right government for this time during COVID. I do not know if the DLP was in power what we would have done. We would have not, I don't know. God is a good God. God is a good God. I want to say to the people of St. George, and I want to say to the young parliamentarians, because, you know, I made a point in Parliament and some people was vexed about it, but I made no apologies. The present Prime Minister has been fair to all of us. I want to make that point. I do not ask. My father always said to me, I told my children this, you know something? If you're a man and you can't speak your mouth, you ain't a man. I don't have to be a friend to you to tell you the truth. I am saying that we were promised 3 roads. The people at Bridgecourt have been asking for the roads all the time. That is the road that had been put in. People at Bridgecourt. And we were given 3. Bridgecourt, St. Jude's, and the one going from Sweet Bottom. Those are promised roads. And of course, the tenantry roads. I don't see any good agent here. But we have also written him a letter telling him that those roads must be done. And we continue to send out newsletters every year to allow the people to know what we're doing. We know that we have an issue here at Constant, that the Constant people, I see a number of Constant people here. I recognize you. Thank you for coming. That are issues that have to be addressed. And I'm happy that Minister Duguid has met with you, and I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask the Prime Minister to follow through it. Prime Minister usually follows through. But I want to say to you that after 26 years, I still have constituency clinics. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy meeting people. And that's why I said some years ago, I wasn't elected to be a minister. I elected to be a representative. There is a captain. And if your minister doesn't understand this, there is a captain. I look at the cricket team. I was a cricket player. A fast bowler, you remember? Sometimes the captain put you long on. Sometimes he put you out square leg. Sometimes he tell you, I can remember one day I was come up on the field and the captain said me, Skipper, don't come out more, you're 12 man. I was 12 man, I had to go back. So the captain can tell you're a 12 man. What can you do? You can sit home and cry? But the captain has to run the team. So I still have the passion. I still have the passion to represent our constituency. The passion and the desire. But the captain, our respected Prime Minister, this woman who is respected the worldwide. In fact, my friend Teddy told me today, you must say this, that she is respected all around the world. I saw her on BBC. You saw that? How a man trying to tap she, and what happened? He got tied up. Our respected Prime Minister, a lady who has, to me, I don't know about you. Know that song? I know about me. She has always kept faith with me here, and that not now. Through the years, the Prime Minister and myself served a border, Browns Village. Now, sometimes me can raise funds. I can't. And she used to support both sides. So she would give her constituents hampers and also mine as well. Those years. Over the years, she has helped me. Over the years. And also our team. This magnanimous Prime Minister asked me 2 weeks ago to consider another place to represent Barbados. She asked me, can you consider? You have done your best. I want you to consider. I have considered. Now, the first person I called was my sister. I got an older sister in England who is a lay preacher. My sister Anita, she may be watching this. And my brother Lawson and some of the others all around the place. I got a lot of family all over the world. I asked some of my constituents, my friend Odea Bull. Now, Bull is my best friend and cool bird, as you know. And I asked my children, some of them are here. I asked persons, my friends. I asked my friend, the speaker. Now, I want to say a word about the speaker because the speaker and I have a good relationship. I'm the deputy speaker currently. But I spoke to him in confidence. He said to me, will you ever? I spoke to my friend, Sir Richard. Now, in difficult times, and in hard times, and in good times, Sir Richard always helped me. Now, if I fall short of resources, I will call Sir Richard, and he will help. Thank you, Sir Richard. So I was asked, the Prime Minister asked me, and I asked the Lord to show me the way. I asked my sister to show me the way. I asked my family. And I must say that after these consultations, I have accepted this offer. I have accepted this offer, which the Prime Minister will say to you what it is, because you can't preempt the Prime Minister. But I want to tell the people of St. George North and South, I will always continue to look after the interests of St. George North. I will always look after the interests of St. George North. I will always look after the interests of Barbados. And I will always look after the interests of the Barbados Labour Party. Today, I want to say to you, and I will say to the speaker some words very shortly. That I'm not sure the words that he will advise me to write to him, but we believe that by the end of the month, 30th of September, and the 1st of October, which is the birthday of the Prime Minister, I will be doing something else. The Prime Minister will tell you that. But I believe that our party is strong. Our branch is strong. We have several persons, eminent persons, who want to represent St. George and are qualified. I will be there to help, to guide, and to assist as much as I can. As I said, I will never leave this constituency. I urge the people of St. George North and Barbados to pray for us and help us select the best replacement. But above all, let us elect the Barbados Labour Party in this constituency. The only body knows the hour and the date is the lady sitting next to me. But as Owen always said, beware, the Son of Man may come at any time. The Son of Man may come at any time. We have to watch and pray and do our work. Do not wait until tomorrow. Get up and work. And I want to salute all those persons who have helped me along the way. And I mentioned my friend Delisle Bradshaw. I mentioned Sir Richard. I mentioned Louis Tull, Mayor, and all the parliamentary group. But I must acknowledge also those persons in the constituency group who have helped along the way. Some of them have departed. Persons like Daddy Carter, Merlene, who have gone, right? And I want to salute Faye Burke, Nigel, of course. I want to salute Sue. I must say, I want to apologize to Sue. I unfair Sue 1 year, Prime Minister. 1 year, I put her to work at GF1. GF1, the hardest boss. And she alone put out the vote that day. We know we could not win. But I put her to work in GF1. I said, do your best in GF1. Because when GF1 feel that they're winning, we will come down the hill with a big man of votes down there. So that was strategy that we have always adopted in St. George. Try your best in GF1. But we will do the rest up the hill. I want to thank Sue. I want to thank all those, of course, I talked Bull already, and Nigel, Carl, Roger, the whole team. Kevin, young Kevin, and of course, my son Shane and Brian and all those who have worked, my family. I want to thank all those, Teddy Howard. I haven't seen Teddy because Teddy manages our campaign. Where's Teddy tonight? I haven't seen Teddy. And he wants me to say to the Prime Minister, he tell me, don't forget to say to the Prime Minister, we in St. George love you. You said that to me. So, I want to say to the people of St. George that it was a great honor serving you. And I will continue to serve you as long as I live. I may not serve you in Parliament, but I will serve you wherever I'm going. I do not know where I'm going yet, but I trust the Prime Minister. Wherever I am going, I trust the Prime Minister. Because as I said to you, she always have my back. It may not look so, but she keeps her word to me. I want to tell my children over there, have no fear. You see how beautiful they are? I want to thank all those who have come out tonight. I want to thank all of you for giving us your support and uninvited attention here today. I want to thank all those who are watching and viewing wherever they are in the world today, that we have a great political party and a government. We need to ensure, despite whatever you hear, I was in Parliament for 26 years, and I want to say to you, it was the best thrown speech, the best articulation. It was a bit longish, right, fine, but it was a good, it had meat. And what you expect, it was a good thrown speech that have something in it, not only for the young, the old, but everything. Somebody called me today and wanted to tell me, okay, we are leaving out the economics. We forget about unemployment and we're doing all that sort of thing. But every person look at it, it has something for employment. It has to generated employment. It generates employment. And I want to say to you, do not allow people to come and fool you. The Barbados Labour Party has never fooled you. The Prime Minister have never fooled you. She told you in 2018, give me the vote and the what? Watch me. Give me the vote and the what? Watch me. And what has happened? Only thing has happened is COVID, and we are riding that smoothly. So I want to tell you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, that we have a good government, we have a good Prime Minister, and we must keep her for the next 8 or so years. I want to thank you. Good night, and God bless you.
Congratulations, Glenn. Innings well batted. Well batted. From the people of St. George North, we want to thank you from the depths of our hearts. We love you too, Glenn. We will continue to. You have done a wonderful job. It is important that we recognize the extent and the reach of this man. He has placed himself in the top 5 every elections. There's no election in which he came less than 5th in term island-wide. I'm talking island-wide. BLP, DLP, whether Barbados Labour Party won or lost. He has done marvelously well at the polls, and that is because of his genuine nature. Tremendous number of Democratic Labour Party supporters have voted for Glenn Clark. Now I can tell you that people who I know speak of the DLP daily, but when it comes to voting time, they vote for Glenn because of the nature of the man. A wonderful man, a man who reached out to each and every one in the constituency. He did not look to see who was B or D when it came to helping people. He just genuinely helped people. People from all of the constituencies came to Glenn Clark 7 o'clock on mornings, and he helped wherever he could. I mean at his meetings, his clinics, clinical 10 o'clock, and there he was. But he was there for the people, and the people were always there for him. Now, the lady of the night. No introduction needed. All I will say is, Prime Minister, And we are ready. The Prime Minister, Mayor Amar Motley.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Can you hear me in the back? I'm going to have to make sure that I develop the capacity to be able to throw my voice again, because it seems as though something is happening. I want to thank all of you for coming out. I want to thank those who are watching us tonight. And I want to say, as I start off, that we find ourselves very much at a point where we have chosen as a government to take fresh guard. And we've chosen to take fresh guard because you can't play the ball without understanding how the wicket is playing and what the temperature is outside, and if the moisture got the seam and the ball gonna swing and move, or whether you may have on occasion now to bring in a leg break bowler as opposed to an off spinner. And I speak in this tone because over the course of the last few weeks and months, you've seen changes. And changes are necessary to respond to the moment and to respond to the environment. But what doesn't ever change are some of the qualities that are needed and the virtues that are needed for us to celebrate in public life. Those are immutable. Those don't change. And I am happy, therefore, that I come to speak to you this evening against the background of performance, because that is the only thing I will ever ask the people of Barbados to judge us by. When I said, give me the vote and watch me, what was I inviting you to do when I spoke to you at Wharton? I was inviting you to judge us on our performance. And as I start out talking to you this evening, against what really, Glenn, is an emotional speech for me that you gave, because most people may not have appreciated how yourself, Ronald, myself, Liz, a few others who are not with us regrettably, Joedgel, Duncan Carter, how we were the fresh faces of 1991. And it gives me pride that as I reflect on that journey, that I can do so against the background of a member of parliament who has shown what it is to define service in his constituency. Glenn Clark is an excellent example of what it is to give sterling service to your constituents session after session after session. And I say so without fear of contradiction. I say so knowing what it is to walk every step of this journey with Glenn, knowing what it is as a young candidate, not yet an MP. For those who complain about how intrusive politics can be, we found each other every weekend. And we moved up and down the length and breadth of Barbados in every constituency. Not so much Topping. But Glenn and I, who happened to like being out late at night, didn't mind that. Not true? But what it did was it allowed us to get to know people and people to get to know us. And whatever else you do in public life,
The platform upon which you first stand is your love of people. The second platform upon which you stand is your commitment to people and your word. Nigel, you just heard say that people would come to Glen from all over. Those who know anything about St. Michael Northeast too would tell you that I get them, Cynthia would tell you, from all over, because she too was with me on the ministerial journey, as was Glen when he started. But you have to listen to people. And I determined at a very young age that it takes 2 minutes to listen to any entreaty. And you will then determine whether you can deal with it on the spot or whether you make an arrangement for persons to come and see you at a later date. And what I appreciated about Glen and Cynthia and a number of you was that regardless of who you were, they followed up. You may not always be able to help. I want people to understand this. You may not always be able to help, but your responsibility is to follow up and see if you can help the person in the manner in which they have asked you to help them. And sometimes it may not be there, but it may be on a parallel track. Glen Clark has been the perfect example of that kind of collaboration and cooperation in this country. And it helped that he started as a platform as a teacher, because I maintain that those who have come to public life as teachers, like Delisle, like Cynthia, like Glen, like Raul Eastman, come with a platform of having been exposed to so many people and working with so many people. But that is why, as Minister of Education, he would be in our ears all the time about the state of schools. And Cynthia, I must tell you that I walked in here just now, and I really want to thank you and commend you for the manner in which this school and these premises have been fixed. The wonderful mural out front, and there is a sense that the children are coming to school in an environment that looks as though they want to be here because of the manner in which it now has been prepared for them. And it's a long and arduous job. But Glen made sure that we took care of all of his primary schools and this secondary school, because he wouldn't let you rest. He wouldn't let David Simmons and myself rest with the Civic Center, right there in the Glebe. Glen believed that St. George North should have a town center here at the Glebe. He got his markets there from the RDC, the Rural Development Commission. He got the polyclinic fixed. And as Minister of Housing, he provided over 100 housing solutions for people here from Flat Rock and elsewhere in this constituency. He didn't stop there. And that's why, Dwight, he has asked, and I am backing him, on the need for unfinished business at the Glebe to be completed. Because how do you look at a building that has started, a foundation that was dug? Cynthia, it is like what they did to you in Jackson. RDC starts a road, the road is 80% finished, and the last government leaves it for 10 years. Harper Valley, yes. Sergeant knows. And Rockhampton Road is the proper name. And it took this government coming to office to finish that. Or in the back, like what they did to me in Canewood Hill, and what they've done to you here with this pavilion at the Glebe. Now, I told you that same night in Wotton to give me the vote on Watchman. But I told you then that we had urgent business first to start and fix. And that once we stabilize the country, we would get there. Now, Glen has been extremely understanding in recognizing that when our debt was 177% debt to GDP, and when we had first to find money to pay public servants who had not had a wage increase, for 10 years that we couldn't start back some of these projects right away. And when I say to you, and Glenn, I thank you for the reference to the cricket team, because as a party, as a team, we have to work together. Not every day is sunny. Not every day is rainy. Not every day you got to climb steep mountains. Not every day the road is flat. But what we have is a team that must work together. And the team is not just members of parliament. The team is you. The team is the people. Because this party was born in the throes of a movement to make this country better. And that is why in the early days, even you here in St. George knew it, because you had with you Sir Hugh Springer, who was the first General Secretary of the Barbados Workers' Union, so that he brought a mission to you to help you lift him up so that he could put and be the voice of labor for the Barbados Labour Party in those days. That is the legacy of the Labour Party in St. George. So that when Glenn Clark came then, a product of what Sir Hugh Springer expected, that Grantley Adams expected, and Freddie Miller expected, and even Errol Barrow, because he represented the Barbados Labour Party in St. George. That what they expected would come as the fruit of their works were people like Glenn Clark and others who would come to represent the people and the communities from which they arose in the manner in which they did. And I know that wherever they are tonight, Glenn, they are looking down and knowing that their efforts paid off, because a son of the soil in this constituency has now become one of its most distinguished representatives in the annals of history in this country. And I want to salute you, my brother, because through it all, Glenn has been affable, smiling, good friends with everybody. It is difficult to abuse this man or get vexed with him. Everybody in here know that. You could abuse him, but he ain't taking it. He ain't taking it. Because, unlike me, in a funny way I learned from him, it takes two to do what? It takes two to have a noise. But if I'm picking a noise with you, you can't pick one with me, because you can soon look like a mad person waving your hand. And Glenn Clark has had as his motto, the motto that we want always, that we have to be friends of all, but satellites of none. And in his own way, he has made his points through. There have been times when we have disagreed on issues, but we never fall out. There have been times when we took different positions, not just in cabinet, but in politics, but we never fall out. Because the fundamental bond and values that tie us together in this common mission are such that they are strong enough to carry us. And I want to say that because, Glenn, I understand what many of your constituents, as mine, as the others who you see here this afternoon, this evening, are facing. In large measure, we ended 2019 in good form. And 2020 was to be the year of hope, the year of promise. And then COVID came out of almost nowhere. And as we have been managing COVID, we've done reasonably well. But you can't drop your guard. And the one message I have come here today to tell you, and want you to carry the length and breadth of this country, the length and breadth of this constituency, is that yes, COVID is a challenge, but COVID shall not hold us back. Onward we shall go, and we shall go forward, as Jeffrey said, confident that there will be no retreat and no surrender to COVID. But I know the extent to which it has caused people and families to scotch and to catch, because some of you who work in the tourism sector, you're not working. Those who worked as vendors on the beach, you're not working. Those who may have some taxis or be a taxi driver, you're not working and getting the same kind of money that you were getting before. And it is for this reason that the government literally put together measures in the throne speech that are about making lives easier for people. And let us be clear about this. This government shall not rest until we are capable of lifting everyone out of the circumstances into which they have been thrown because of COVID. And the others will tell you that if we speak sometimes in strong and decisive language, it is because we hold our own selves to very high standards as to what we must deliver to you. And I came this evening, as I said, to talk to you about performance. Because confident in our capacity to perform, I can say to you that COVID shall not hold us back. Because we know what we have to do. And that is why, and a time will come for me to discuss what some of the others are choosing to discuss this week with some of the wedge issues. But I have come to St. George to talk, Glenn, about jobs. I've come to St. George to talk about the measures in the throne speech that speak to giving people confidence and capacity in this country. And what are they? I am humbled by the commentary publicly that the throne speech is ambitious. Well, a government that has a mandate such as we, you expect me to come to underperform or overperform? Have to overperform. To whom much is given, to whom much is given, and that is where we stand. But I've also come, as I told you, in taking fresh guard. The Governor General couldn't spend time talking to you about the progress, because then you would say that the speech was even too long still. And we focus in the speech of the throne to look forward. But this evening, I'm going to remind you, and it seems as though Joe Adderley can no longer recognize his signature. You understand? Because in this manifesto was the signature of all of us. And we have come because we believe that what we say to you that we shall do this week in the throne speech, you need to ask yourself first, can I believe these people and what has been their record? So let me start first with the throne speech quickly and come back to who we are, and then to deal with some of the night noise that there is from political watchmen, night watchmen around the place. Suffice it to say that the first thing that this government is committed to doing, and believe you me, we know sometimes that the process of bureaucracy can be taxing, and that's why you hear me all the time talk about deconstruct and reconstruct, because we're trying to deal with a 21st century people in the third decade of the 21st century, but you're still using mechanisms that are rooted 40 and 50 and 60 years ago. And my government has said no, that we can't do this. We started last year with the people who were customs officers, clerical people in the customs service, working for 20 and 22 years and never once being appointed in there. And that led us to also understanding in immigration, in agriculture, in Ministry of Health, in the hospital. And you go right across the public service. The last government not only did not give public servants in this country a raise, but they did not appoint the majority of people in the public service in this country. And they left people then exposed to the gale force winds without being able to go to the bank and show, look, I've been doing this job for 5 years, for 7 years, this is my salary. The bank only want to take you on with the lower salary because the bank says you're not appointed. Some of you were temporary and you never even were appointed in the first place at all. And this government has been faithful in saying to you, not only have we given you the salary increase, but the public servants of Barbados must be appointed if they have been in a position for more than 3 years, acting in that position. But I go further, because you see, the one thing that was not said was when. And we have determined that to simply wait until you can go through all of the letters one by one by one by one for the couple thousand people who have to be appointed is tedious. And therefore, the Ministry of Public Service brought to Cabinet a paper asking for a special bill to be brought to Parliament that will immediately deem all persons who are not now who are not now appointed to an established position, or who, for whatever reason, may be in a temporary post that is about to be established, but in both instances, there for longer than 3 years, that unless you have a case in the criminal court, unless you have a disciplinary matter before the Services Commission, unless you have a process that has started with you going to the medical board because you're no longer capable of carrying out your job, so you haven't been to work for months, and therefore you're looking to see whether you can be medically boarded, unless you have a negative reference in your personnel file, that if you don't have none of those, then you will be entitled to be appointed to the public service of Barbados come the 1st of October 2020. This is not a case like the Democratic Labour Party getting up in Parliament and promising you over and over and over that people will be appointed to the public service and never having them. Now, by the same token, there will be some posts that are just project created, and therefore those are not intended to be permanent. But by the vast majority, for the vast majority of posts, those persons will now be appointed, and I'm happy to say that the bill actually will be laid in Parliament this Tuesday, the 22nd of September, and we hope that we will be able to debate it on the 29th of September in the House of Assembly, and on the 30th of September in the Senate, and that Her Excellency will be able to sign to its assent on the 1st of October as we have set out. But we didn't stop there. There are those who don't have jobs, and we just talked about it, because COVID led to zero revenue in the tourism sector. And COVID led to tens of thousands of people all of a sudden being in no man's land. Now, we have tried, and we came at the end of March, we came again at the end of April, and we've come again now, and we said, look, we have a duty to do things that will lead to people being able to work and to have money in the pocket, to be able to buy food, to be able to pay water and light, to be able to support their family. Don't get tied up. This is not a time for sprinting. This is not a time for fancy movements. This is a time to keep your head above the water. I went in the sea today. Keep your head above the water. If I didn't keep my head above the water, I wouldn't be able to stand here this evening and talk to you. And all I ask us to do, because this country will get through COVID. COVID will not hold us back if we move together and if we work together. And that is why the Governor General at the end of her speech said these words: when things are good, we will share. And when things are bad, we will also share. Because it is only in the settling of a collective mission, and it is only in helping to carry each other forward, that we have to do and will get through this. And why? We hope that we will be able to put COVID behind us in another year or so. But we don't know. There is not a human being on this earth that can put an end date to COVID. But we have, however, to live, and to live with it, minimizing the exposure of those who are on the front line. And that is why you sit here in this meeting, spaced out and with masks. That is why, so long as you're going to be in less than 3 feet to one another, wear your mask. In Jamaica, we have seen some giants of the Caribbean political movement felled by COVID. And I want to send our sympathy to the People's National Party and the loss of D.K. Duncan, who is one of their political giants in that country, who regrettably lost his life this week to COVID. There are other people that I know in the region. There are people here. One of my closest friends was a Barbadian who died in Miami from COVID. So that this thing is real, and I want young people in particular to understand that you may have the capacity to fight it more, but you have the responsibility to protect those who are on the front line equally more because of that capacity to fight it. And if we work with those in the communities and the families, we will get there. But the government set up a $40 million program to be able to engage people in the next year. Santia, starting with you, and because school starts tomorrow, it may take another week or two to get the people in position. But we are working as fast as we can because we want primary school monitors. Why? Because we all know that a little child at 5 and 6 and 4 and 7 and 8, the first thing they're going to want to do is share masks with one another. Alright? Then when they're running about in the yard, the teachers and everybody going to need a little extra help to make sure that you can control and at least monitor them better. That's why we call it primary school monitors. That's why we say that we need to be able to put just about 225, 230 persons in the primary schools, and preferably parents of children within the community, because we want people who already have a vested interest in the children going to that particular school. But it doesn't stop there. We ask for personal support workers at the National Assistance Board, because those who are on the front line are our older people. And therefore, more than anything else, we need the people in the communities in which they live to be working out who you got to go and look for when the NAB workers ain't coming out today. Who you got to make sure got little tea or taking the medication. Huh? Who you got to make sure that they may need some stuff from the shop, but they don't want to go out and be exposed because they got a serious comorbidity or something. And those are the things, and we reckon that we are going to need just over 500 of them island-wide in order to be able to deal with the communities that are exposed in this country. We ask the question that so many people ask. You know how many people come from St. Michael and again St. Thomas and St. George and St. John and don't know the way around the country anymore? You are be shocked at the amount of people that don't know Barbados. And we have to therefore put backup signs. And we've said that, look, we are prepared to do some projects that will make a difference to how the country will look and feel after COVID. Let us use this time now. We help people get a little piece of change, but we also get some things done that we've been talking about for a long time to do in this country. So the Where Am I project, we need signs. How many developments now got roads with no signs? Postman can't find people. How many people coming from town are going to look for family in the country and they don't know where they're going and there are no signs up to tell them where to go when they turn in a particular area? So the signs have to be made, the signs have to be installed. We talk about the hedgerow. You in St. George, more than others, know the importance of the hedgerow to good agricultural practice and husbandry in this country. And we get into the bad ways. Once sugar started to fall, people stopped cleaning wells in plantations. When you stop cleaning wells, what that means? Liable to flood. aquifers not recharging. Then we worrying about why we got problems at Bowmanston and other wells where the water level is so low. Then we don't, because we've fallen out of love with agriculture in this country for too many decades. The soil's in bad condition. You can't get the yield that you need from plants and crops in this country. And when you go further, the soil got this hard pan. And unless you break the dead pan soil and go 2.5 feet down and lift up the soil and let it regenerate and oxidate again, you can't get the crops to grow where you want to. Because I ain't a scientist, but I listen well. Guys, listen well. And if the roots are restricted and can't spread out, then what is above on the other side of the soil can't spread out either, because I'm told, what's it called, the allometric ratio? Adrian is the scientist, the allometric ratio. But the point is that the shade above of the plant matches the root system in the ground. So if the root system can't move, you're constraining the capacity of the plant to grow, the crop to grow. Now, these things are too simple for us to be able to do and get things that every field over the next 2 years we need to go through systematically once the crop that they are in now is harvested, and literally break up the soils and start to treat our soils properly. That is a separate project, capital project, that we will undertake to make sure people work. You can't twiggle your nose and see the tractor drive. Somebody got to drive it. You can't twiggle your nose and plant the hedgerows, whether it's lemongrass or couscous. Somebody got to plant them. And therefore, in doing these things, we are creating the opportunity for people to work. The danger has always been that if you bring people back on full time, then you run up where the Democratic Labour Party was after 2008. But what we have chosen to do is to find a number of key projects that are effectively time-bound or that have a life cycle, that during the period of time till morning come. Think of post-COVID as till morning come. Weeping may endure for a night, but what? Joy cometh in the morning. And that is why I know that COVID-19 can't hold us back. Because sector by sector by sector, the projects are there. But they're not only that. In Scotland District, Dale will tell you we went up there 2 weeks ago in Darkhole and in Fruitful Hill. There are parts of Fruitful Hill that I had never been. It was overtaken. Another example of a road that was almost completed by the Barbados Labour Party, and when the Democratic Labour Party came in, not a piece of work done on that. And I have to thank Dale Marshall and my press secretary, Roy Morris, for making sure that this story got out. A man wrote me a note, one of the most touching notes that he sent via Roy for me 3 Sundays ago. And when the man came out and saw the work being done in Fruitful Hill, he told Roy, hold on a minute, I'm coming back. And he came back. And in his hand, he was holding this mango, this big mango. And he said, I don't have much, but this is what I have. Give this to the Prime Minister for me and tell her thank you. The gentleman said that as a child, there was a landslide back in 1966 around independence, and that he never thought that in his lifetime again. He lived in that area when they had the landslide, and he never thought in his life again he would see that road open back up so that people could traverse through there again, until Dale Marshall and the Barbados Labour Party. But what we realize, and Whitehill is the same thing in St. Andrew with George, is that we need to be able to stabilize the Scotland District. The Barbados Labour Party passed the Scotland District Authority Act, and the Democratic Labour Party put it one side, as if 1/7 of the country could be ignored and left to fall away into the sea. There are parts of Glen Burnie, ask Charles Griffith, that have already fallen into the sea in this country. because we have not done the work to stabilize the soils, this Barbados Labour Party will remain faithful to the people of the Scotland District. And I want us to understand that it is because of that. And William Dugan, I'm told, is here. William, stand up, Skipper, man. Tell them, let me salute you. I see him. I don't know where it's so far in the back, but that's all right. William did the heavy lifting, and Ian Goodenedgell is now finishing it off. For us to sign a loan with the Chinese government for $115 million US, 230 million Barbados, that will see the entire Ermy-Bourne Highway and East Coast roads completed, redone, but more, or as important I should say, in addition to that, 41 community roads in the Scotland District to be completed from Whitehill right back down. The matter is now before the Solicitor General for her to complete so that Complant can start, which is a Chinese company, can start the work. And let me for the record say that the government has been very clear that the majority of workers must come from Barbados, not like the last government who agreed that 60% of the workforce should come in from China. That is the difference when I say judge us by our performance. But when the Governor General spoke this week, she spoke about that. She also spoke about other loans. We're in the middle of concluding discussions with the Latin American Development Bank for another $100 million US for roads and bridges. That's $200 million. Now, when these road works start in Whitehill and on the East Coast, and in that land, that walking, that's the closest thing to Disney World in Barbados. You went down Foster Hall, that's what we inherited. Foster Hall going down to Bath, going right back down to Concept Bay, the road like this. But we had to fix the debt problem first. We had to put the house in good order in order to be able to access the other resources that you need to build the country and to move forward. But in spite of that, the government took up its duty, because the last government could have been doing the potholes and fixing the roads, but it didn't do nothing. How all of a sudden when we come in, all kind of roads get done in Barbados? All of a sudden, from Clapham to Green Hill, from St. Philip right back through to the highways. But we know that because they neglected doing so many roads, that the roads that we have to do will take us another 3, 4, 5 years to complete, because they did virtually no road work of any serious mention in 10 years. But we don't stop there. The Governor General also announced that in addition to the $40 million COVID relief program, and I haven't gone into every aspect of that relief program, but I've given you a taste for quite a few, and it is intended to be able to ensure that at least 2,200 Barbadians can get some relief, 2,200 families in the next 12 months. As I said, we will contract them, and we will allow people to be able to live. This country must also become the cleanest and prettiest country. This notion that bush growing on the side of the road or people dumping where they want to dump can't work. This was a country where people used to take pride and clean outside of the house. They didn't only clean inside the curtilage of their property. They cleaned the roadside outside their house because they felt that where they live or to the next side or the next side should look a certain way. And the government already started last year by having a program that sees us have people on, week off, with respect to the cleaning. We are going to hire more people because in addition to the roads, we recognize that the lots need cleaning, we recognize that the beaches need cleaning, we recognize that the gullies need cleaning, we recognize that the wells and the water courses must also, at this particular point, be the benefit of that. So I see Ian is with us now, and he is going to be like the Energizer Bunny because he has so much work outlined. And the difference between us and the Democratic, come inside here, man. The difference between us and the Democratic, give him a clap. Is that we are not talking. We know where we are financing the roads. We know what we are doing. In the Scotland district, men are going to be hired to build gabions because before the Chinese can do their work, the one sure thing we know is that we have to stabilize the land with the gabions. And if you can have people on the ground dealing with the gabions, then we are going to be able to deal with that in good order. I don't stop there. The best program, the Barbados program to be able to literally employment for sustainable transformation. Tell me this. It makes sense for a person to draw an employment benefit and stay at home and do nothing? Or it makes sense for us to give them a little more and let them go work and try to do from training to other things that they got to do in the property to be able to do other things to make the place look better. I confess that I took a boat ride across this island, west and south coast, and I was horrified at the sight of the tourism properties just looking desolate. The only body happy about the tourists not being there, maybe the beaches and the water for a little break. We determined that the greatest threat to Barbados' economic recovery is our inability to keep our hotel stock and our hotel workers engaged. Because when the time for reopening comes, if you don't have a property or workers to be able to service the people going to that property, you will be in nothing. So if you shut down a hotel and keep it shut, in this heat especially that we got about here nowadays, tell me what's going to happen to the tiles in there. They're going to blow. And then you have the bathrooms. You don't flush toilets every day. What's going to happen to them, Coolbird? The seize up. Then the little water that start to drip around the sink. We're talking real things, but real things. The water around the sink bottom start to do what? Turn yellow. And you come to rent the room, and they give you a room with a toilet that's not working and sink that got yellow around it. What are you going to do? Tell them, can you please change my room? So that fundamentally, once we realize that we are in this for the long haul, we have to find ways of opening back up our tourism product. And you're going to hear a lot more of that in the next few weeks. Because at the end of the day, drunk or sober, if you ain't got nowhere for the people to stay when the countries open back up, you can't make no money from tourism. And the government therefore said, look, we are going to help the workers and the hoteliers. And the union was the first one to bring the plan to us in terms of it does not make sense triggering severance. It does not make sense triggering and extending unemployment benefit. But if we can have a job retention program, people just need to know that they have their jobs and that they can go to work. They may not be able to earn all that they want now because the hotel ain't earning anything. And therefore, we came up with a plan. Let us give the workers 80% of their salary. We will lend it through investment. Not really lend, we will invest in it, what is known as a preference share. That's just a fancy word, as Dale will tell you, set of words, that before you can pay back yourself, before you can take money out the company, before you can issue any dividends, you got to pay the government back what the government put in the company. And invariably, preference shares can have all kinds of conditions, just like a loan. And we say, okay, we can't hurt these people because we want a tourism sector that is vibrant and that is employing tens of thousands of people. So we will do it at 2%. And you will get the first couple of years where you don't have to pay us back anything, because when you first start working and you don't take out a loan, well, you need a little elbow room to be able to catch yourself and to get yourself back together. And then to know that from year 3, we can charge you at 2%, and then it steps up to 5%, and it steps up to 7%. Why? Because we're trying to tell you, hurry up and pay back the government. Don't take long. The longer you take, the more money you've got to pay. That ain't common sense? Huh? So that realistically, that's what we're doing. But we're saying, pause. You want to bring back on the people, and we want you to bring them back on. But we know that business might not be top business to start with. So let us therefore try and get a little other things going. We need to green the place. You need water-saving devices for toilets, water-saving devices for showers, so that you can have, because what does a hotel spend money on? And that's all the government did, you know. Look and see how hotels spend their money. Large part of it is wages, between 25 and 30%. Large part of it is utilities. So you need to get proper water-saving devices, and you need to get some renewable energy so you can reduce the price of electricity for the hotel. Because if you've got all these rooms and everybody using these water heaters and everybody using the electricity at the same time, your light bill for the hotel can do so. Proops. So we insist that you have to green. The next thing we insist is that you see these things here? You got to go digital. You know how much people now don't walk about with a wallet or cash? They pay with this. You know how many processes are done digitally? So that we need the hotels to come into the 3rd decade of the 21st century and allow the people to interact with the hotels digitally. We're going to help you with that too. And then with the training, because like it or lump it, we have to come to the reality that every one of us, from me right back down to the last child in this island, all of us must now ask ourselves, how can we do our jobs better, and how can we get the level of training for our people that we need for them to be able to do their job better? And why? People have choices. People don't want to come here, you know. People have choices. And therefore, the service that we deliver has to be brought up to make people say, boy, you see them people? I never had such a good time in my life. I never had people look out for me like those people look out for me. They are so sincere. They are so polite. They are so friendly. They are so... And people want to come back. And that is the Barbados that we must aspire to. And we are not only looking to do it in the tourism sector, but we also have citizenship modules that we feel that every one of us needs to take in order for us to lift up our game in this country. And then we say, if you owe the government some money in statutory liabilities, come forward and settle some arrangements with us. Why? You hear me all the time say, do unto others as you would have others do unto you, correct? And when we became the government, we had to say to the people who held our debt that we need a little ease, that we need a little restructuring. And we recognize that of the $1.2 billion owed to the government of Barbados now by companies and people, you're never going to collect all of that. Some of those companies gone and shut down long time. Others, because nobody followed up with them for years, you have difficulty. And what we are doing now is saying to people, if you can settle your debt within 3 years, you're going to get X per haircut. If you ask a question, but you owe the government all of this, or you owe the workers, you got to settle. And therefore, that is why we've said that we will work with members of the private sector first and foremost, to make sure that they settle the arrangements with their workers first and foremost, because never forget, this party is a labor party and understands where its basis comes from. We go further. The people in Licorice Village and the Bell, how long they've been promised to have out their sewer so that they can go to the bank like anybody else and go and try and borrow a little something for the house. And if they get that, the truth is that that means that people are getting what, Glenn? Jobs, because they got to fix. Just as we're doing in Murphy Pasture in town. And Billy, you would be happy, as Jeffrey is already happy, to hear that those people who live now in the shadow of the Bridgetown sewage plant will also in the Orleans and Chapman Lane and Everton will now finally be sewered to be able to connect to that plant in a way that they have not been able to over the years. All of these things lead to jobs. All of these things lead to people working. And I give you just a few. I haven't gone on to talk about the HOPE program with homeowners, new homeowners, particularly policemen and teachers and nurses, being able to go and get housing in this country. You know how many single mother nurses have reached out to me since I have been Prime Minister of this country? You know how many police constables earning $2,700 and $2,800 a month can't go and buy any property for no $20 and $25 a square foot? Because that's where the last government left it. And without the intervention, Glenn spoke to you tonight about the Tenantries Freehold Purchase Act. And we recognize that the moment is upon us now to literally use our intervention to keep the price of land down for these policemen, for these teachers, for these nurses, because if not, they cannot afford it. At the very bottom, those earning $4,000 and less. And therefore, if you can use the land that you get in planning gains, a person wants to do X, and we say to them, it's a huge development, we can work with you, but we need some planning gains for low-income housing in this country. And we have been able to get planning gains at Hanson, Lower Burney, 40 acres. We're getting in Searles, we're getting in St. Lucie, we're getting the land to put into the pile so that what we then do is only have to pay the prices for the roads and the electricity and the water to go in so that the people can then come and build. And we are trying equally to work with the banks and the financial institutions using the Housing Credit Fund to unlock the potential of these lands, but also to be able to keep the price down for construction of housing for people under $4,000 in household income. These are not pie in the sky. William has already started building model houses. We have already gone to tender, and there are 5 or 6 companies that have expressed interest in taking up some of the lands, and the condition is that we build resilient housing. Because you see all this heat? That is not good. And at some point, we hope not soon, I'm looking for some wood. Barbados will have its moment with a storm. But we need to make sure that the housing that people build in can withstand these storms. And that we need to make sure that the pitch of the roof, whether it is a gable roof or a hip roof, you understand? We need to make sure that these things will happen. And therefore, when the houses start building and the roads start going in, from Poole in St. John, in Christchurch, in St. Lucie, in St. Philip, you can't twiddle your nose and get the roads or the houses. People have to do what? Get what? Jobs, work. And therefore, my friends, I have come to tell you that I am humbled by the notion that the government's agenda is ambitious. But ambition is always what the Barbados Labour Party has been about. It was what drove Grantley Adams. It was what drove Tom Adams. It was what drove Owen Arthur. It was what drove Bree St. John. It was what drove Henry Ford, even in opposition, to believe that he could bring a whole team of young people like us and help us reconstitute this party. So I am not in any way at all ashamed of that. I want to tell Joe Adderley, when he said that this was an election-thrown speech, as usual, they get 10% of it right as facts and 90% of it wrong. It seems as though he wants an election. Glenn, Joe wants an election. Did he say that he wanted an election deal? Well, Glenn has told you that he will step down come the 30th of September from the Parliament of Barbados after a distinguished career as a representative for St. George North, unbroken since 1994. That means that under the laws of this land, the people of this country will have to go to an election within 90 days of October 1st. Not true? So that since Joe wants an election, and since Joe has now been facilitated by Glenn Clark's accepting an offer from me, I had to invite our very good friend, also a distinguished son of the soil of St. George, to return home from Ottawa and to be the president of the Senate after a distinguished term by Sir Richard Cheltenham. For the last 27 months. And Reggie, I thank you for once again coming at such short notice and agreeing to help this government constitute properly the parliament of this nation. And we expect that as distinguished as Sir Richard's service was, so shall yours be. But that leaves us with a vacancy in Ottawa. And many of you would have heard Glenn say this morning, this afternoon, and you would have read it in the papers, I believe, this morning. I'm not sure how these papers tend to be getting these things, but God is good. That Glenn started his career as a vice consul in Canada. And anyone who knows me knows that the trips that I made to Canada in recent years, when I was leader of the opposition, Kay McConney can confirm, William can confirm, that Glenn Clark was with me. And the response of the people in Canada to this gentleman confirmed in my mind that the right person for the job at this time in Canada for the representation of the people of Barbados is Glenn Arley Clark. And I believe, Glenn, that you will continue to bring that approach that you have that brings people together. People of different backgrounds, people of different perspectives, people of different ideologies. That's the genius of Glenn Arley Clark. That he has been able to let everyone come to work together in pursuit of a common mission, whatever that mission is. So that, my friends, Glenn's exit shall occasion a vacancy in the parliament of this nation. And as I said, within 90 days, a by-election will have to be called. I have every confidence that when that by-election is called, that the Barbados Labour Party shall do its utmost best once again to enjoy the will of the people as the people's representative. In a very real sense, I talked to you about fresh guard. But for those who like more automobile analogies, I can tell you that we stop in one side in this service station for a top-up. And we're going to top up the fuel. and we're going to top up the oil, and we're going to make sure that everything in the engine working fine, but we're going to also pick up a new passenger. And that passenger must be a strong passenger, because we have a lot of heavy lifting to do. And I have said to this nation that at these very difficult times in the history of our country and in the history of the world, we need people equal to the task to help us lift the weight. And I know that there are a number of people who are interested, and believe you me, I'm going to find spaces for everybody going forward. And why? Don't get tired. I've been in this almost 30 years. I don't have as much gray as Billy yet, but it's coming. And all of this is a journey. None of us can stay where we are forever. But it is our duty to bring along people at every stage and to expose them. In the same way that when I joined this party in 1989, August, Vivian Goodman and Mary King and others held me on the floor right there and literally exposed me at those annual conferences at the Samuel Jackman Prescott Polytechnic, as it was then, and to all of the other branch meetings that Glenn and myself and Conliffe and others would go all about Barbados too. And Bree St. John and Billy Miller and David Simmons and Johnny Cheltenham and Louis Tull and Henry Ford and all of them, Delal Bradshaw, he caused me to buy my first house. Delal said, you can't be going offering yourself to the public and you ain't got the house. I said, that's true, Delal. He says, you hear what I tell you? And I went the next week and buy a house to live in. Had to go and apply for a mortgage. But the point I'm making is that it's a continuum. And that in the same way, we pass on the knowledge to each other, because we have to make sure this Labour Party has gone through now how many generations? 4 clear generations of leadership. And there will be others after us. So that to that extent, I hope that we can do our business in good order, as we have tried to do the majority of our existence. I expect Glenn and Nigel to meet with the branch executive tomorrow evening, and I will meet with different other organs of the party as the political leader, and with the chairman and the general secretary and the parliamentary party going forward, and the National Council. But rest assured that those who feel that this was an election thrown speech for an election coming next year, I say to Joe Atherley, remember what you're saying, because he tried to rubbish the record of this government for no other reason than the fact that he is no longer a member. But the same Joe Atherley signed this document to talk about the rebuilding of our foreign reserves being the most urgent thing that this government could do. We couldn't get 10 cents from nobody to borrow under the Democratic Labour Party. The reserves were at just over 400 million, 440. 4 to 5 weeks. Last Friday, our reserves were $2,138 million. 30 weeks. Now, those are not arbitrary numbers. I could not stand here and announce, not even all, but some of what I just announced, to create jobs in this country, if we did not have the foreign reserves to back up the investments that both the government and the private sector have to make in jobs in this country now. If you don't have the reserves, you can't get the money translated into US dollars or yen or British pounds or euros to buy the material and the equipment that you need to do the things that we want to do in housing, in roads, in the sewer system. But Joe Atherley says that we have not achieved anything on our mission agenda. You see, the problem with Joe is that anytime he sees numbers, the only thing he seems obsessed about is getting the $150,000 for a party that didn't exist last election. And Owen Arthur was clear as Prime Minister when he introduced the political subventions. I don't speak on these issues a lot because I don't get tied up and distracted because the agenda that we have is too much and too busy. I am in your business, not his. But Owen Arthur at the time, and I know because I was the General Secretary of the Barbados Labour Party when it happened, that the parliamentary subvention could only go to a person or an MP representing a party that existed in the election before that elected the MP. Now, the only party that Joe Atherley knew up until the morning after the election was which party? The Barbados Labour Party. And there are many of you who believe that were it not for the Barbados Labour Party and myself and others walking about with him, that he won't be where he is now today either. Don't get tied up. So that, and there was a good reason why Owen and David Thompson and Richie Haynes settled those rules. You know, there's a lady who I know very well who's telling you all that know them ain't dead yet. I remember the conversations and the agreements. And the agreement was that if you gave it to a person who simply crossed the floor, then there would be a moral hazard because you would be literally creating an opportunity for anybody who was a backbencher to cross the floor and get $150,000 as an independent and then form a political party. And Billy Miller used to tell us in 1991, Billy had a famous statement, there are parties without leaders and there are leaders without parties. And we would all of a sudden end up with one-man parties in the House of Assembly just to draw $150,000. So if the PDP were ever to win a seat in the next election, whenever it is called, and as Glenn says, no one knows when the Son of Man cometh, so I would advise every one of you to always be on your guard. But if they won a seat in the next election, then under the rules of Parliament, they would be entitled to it. If the Democratic Labour Party had won a seat in the last election, they too would have been entitled to it as they would have been and received it every year since it was established in the late 1990s. But let me go on, because I am just going to tell you for all who got lighthead or can't remember. And remember I said that this is about performance. And remember I said that the agenda that is ambitious in the throne speech, judge us by our performance. Because this is the same party that told you, give me the vote and watch me. And when we told you that about the reserves, promise made, promise what? Delivered. Dealing with the debt, next thing, 177% debt to GDP. Debt close to $15 billion. Today our debt is less than $13 billion because we got a lot of it written off. And because we did the heavy lifting with our domestic debt in November 2018 and with our external debt in December last year. And that's why I told you that we were literally at the point of takeoff in 2020. Our debt moved from 177% down to 118% debt to GDP. But when your economy starts to contract, your GDP is going to fall too, and therefore your debt to GDP goes up even without your increasing a cent in debt because you're dealing with ratios. But that does not faze us, and that is why you've seen me doing all the heavy lifting outside of Barbados to get ourselves the fiscal space, because every country in the world, United States of America, you see it borrowing trillions of dollars to keep its people at work. Europe, China, India, Singapore, Caribbean, countries in Latin America. And what has happened is that we've said, and you'll hear me talk more about it, you're going to have to ring-fence the debt that these countries incur during COVID and treat to it like how the British government treat to the war debt for World War II. In other words, take it and stretch it out long. 50, 60, 70 years, most of us won't be here. British government still paying debt, just here the other day, from World War II in the 1939-45 World War. But we have said to people that we are also prepared, and that's what the Governor General told you on Tuesday. Don't get tied up. BERT is not a static program. And that our economic recovery and transformation program, if we have to incur some debt to protect Bajans, as God is my witness, it shall be incurred. Because you have to keep your head above water. If we allow our people to fall, then we have problems. So I asked myself, where shall we be in November 2021? November 2021 means that we have to keep people's heads above water. We told you in this manifesto that we would bring tax relief, that we would abolish the NSRL. It gone. We told you that we would abolish the road tax and spread it out more evenly at the pump so that all who was dodging road taxes before got to pay it in the pump so that it is even across everybody. Done. We told you that we would repeal the oppressive requirement that you couldn't do business without tax clearance certificates. Dale Marshall, get rid of that. We told you that we would get rid of the municipal solid tax and we will eventually return what people paid. We started this year and we said we're giving back people the money with the people who paid the deposits for the housing units for the national housing since 2007 and 2008. Over 450 people out of pocket, $5.5 million. Took a government at its word that pay and you're going to get the properties conveyed. The Democratic Labour Party came in and changed their mind and said they're giving everybody free. Up to now, they convey the majority of them. Leave that once again for the Barbados Labour Party to do, and we shall do it. But it is morally wrong for the people who paid their good money in good faith to be victimized and not have their deposits returned to them. This Barbados Labour Party shall do right by the people who were affected with that money paid in there. We told you that we would deal with the international business problems because of what the Democratic Labour Party and Don Valinis and Frondel Stewart did when they went and told the people in Europe that they will abolish the international business sector regime, but never told anybody in Barbados, and Ronald Toppin had to land and come to shore and bring 14 pieces of legislation within us being in office in the first 6 months of government to save the international business sector of Barbados. And Joe Atherley is supposed to be Ronald's friend. I'm going to say that we ain't do nothing. I'm ready for him. We said that we would give the public servants a cost of living allowance if we did not reach an agreement with the trade unions for salary increase. Well, we talked about the 5% salary increase that you had that no government didn't give you for 10 years other than the Barbados Labour Party. Mission accomplished there too. And then there was give me the vote and watch my point. The raising of the non-contributory pension from $145 to $225 a week. You remember in the campaign they said we couldn't do it? You remember they cursed me from larboard to starboard and we were going to mash up the whole place? Well, the people have been getting it now for 26 months. And we're still standing. And our pensioners are facing a far more dignified life now than if they were earning. Imagine if they were still earning 145 or 150 now, if we didn't rebase them and bring them up. We said to you that we are going to deal with the arrears and refunds. I just spoke about that again, but we've had different amnesties over the course of the last 2 years, recognizing that we have to help people. We also said we were going to give you back your tax refunds on time. And we've started being current with that. We are clearing the last set of arrears that go back to 2010. You can imagine that we're still paying back people from 2010, from the last government not paying them, 2010, 2011, 12, 13, 14. We told you that we were going to literally expand the accident and emergency department. The $10 million gone down to the QEH, the foundation bill, and they're coming out of the ground. We told you that we were going to have 2 24-hour polyclinics. The first one start with Fast Track at Winston Scott, and Jeffrey now announced, and the Governor General announced, that the second one will be the David Thompson Polyclinic. At last, David Thompson's name will be put to good use in this country for a polyclinic. We told you that we were going to fix the South Coast sewage system. Wilfred Abrams, stand up and take a bow. We came to this country. You know how embarrassed I was when I spoke to the managing director of the IMF the Thursday after we won government, and Christine Lagarde was at the G20 meetings in Ottawa in Canada. And the first thing she asked me after I said, "Hey, how are you in new government?" She says, "I hear you have an unfortunate event of sewage running in the streets." No, it was true. But you understand how I felt as Prime Minister of Barbados, having the head of the International Monetary Fund telling me that she heard that this is what Barbados has had to deal with. At some point, you got to feel some shame. And I remember being in foundation school and giving you and the public my number and saying, "Frondell, call me." And by the way, tell Colin Spencer my number ain't changed neither. I remember that. And when we told them that, they said that it was this and it was that and it was this and they couldn't get this done and this. And Wilfred Abrams, William Dugan, and a bunch of people, Trevor Prescott, Adrian Ford, a bunch of people in the cabinet constituted a subcommittee and came to work every week to make sure that we would fix the South Coast Sewage Project to the point where we have another temporary outfall going out from Graham Hall. We have to deal with the permanent one there by Needham's Point. And only Thursday, Ian Goodenough brought a paper to the cabinet allowing us to look at entering into negotiations with the Chinese for the construction of a new sewage plant at the South Coast at Graham Hall in Barbados. And they say, we ain't perform. They live in another world. But it is not Barbados, and you can remind them of that whenever elections are called for them. They talk about garbage, and we put up with the licks because I was very clear. In order for you to buy something, you got to have what first? Money. So that the first thing we had to do was to fix the debt and fix the reserves. And as soon as we get out of that little bit, within 6 months, we then put in the orders. I don't know if Trevor's here. We put in the orders for the trucks. And when we realized that more trucks were breaking down than we wanted, we put in a second order for trucks that could come fast. And in the throne speech on Tuesday, we announced that we have an unsolicited bid for us to be able to improve our waste management system. And we will now go, as recommended to by the AG, to put out an ad saying that we have received an unsolicited bid to help us do these things so that we can get a better waste management system, as Adrian is now trying to do and pick up, and that we can have garbage cans that we can track and know when the garbage get taken out and when it ain't get taken out, and that can help with the occupational health and safety issues for the workers so that they don't have to lift up the garbage cans, but the garbage cans can be raised. You still need the same workers because the garbage can got to get from in front of the person's house to the truck. But what you want to do is to make sure that the men don't put the pressure upon themselves and having to lift these heavy bins all the time as if we don't have technology in today's world. But we take the lashes, and when the trucks come, you can't hear a word from Dennis Sloan or none of them upon garbage. We told you that we would put buses back on the road. thank William Dugan and Ian Goodenedgel as chair of the Transport Board for that. And the good news is that we will be getting a few more because we wanted to see how these first set work. We are satisfied that they're working well. We will get 12 more from China, but we will also be ordering 15 more to be manufactured locally because local manufacturing may take a little longer, but it means what? Jobs, jobs, jobs. And we have the money for that too. We told you at number 11 we would repair your roads. I have already outlined, but you know more than me, from the ABC highway that done to areas like, you imagine that Green Hill was not done, a main thoroughfare in Barbados, because they felt they were trying to spite the MPs, me and Ronald Toppin. Huh? You got a town center and you don't do warrants for over 10 years? Don't mind the other ones, the other districts like behind BIM and Friendship Terrace and all of them that were signed by Owen Arthur and Clico with the funding and Glenn Clark in August 2007. And the government came in and tore up the contract that had in areas in my constituency, Cynthia's constituency and others. But I don't make the noise. Because as far as I'm concerned, like Glenn, put down your head and do your work and deal with the people and you will get through. And we are now here to do right by the people and have started with those roads already. But I just told you about over $400 million in loan funds to be spent on roads in Barbados in the next 4 to 5 years. We told you that we were going to alleviate the water woes. And we are going to. But like with the garbage and like with the buses, understand that there is no part of the world that people is keep inventory now. We found out that with COVID real. People manufacture to order. You want something, order it, and then they manufacture it. The only time you find things now is if somebody canceling an order and you can literally pick up something on the hoof and run with it. So that the work that is done now and being done, building on what Wilfred started, building on what the Water Authority started, will see us literally putting in a pump house at Vineyard to be able to take the excess water. The government has been paying for 3 million gallons of water every day for over 4 years and only using 2 from the Groves project. Paying for 3 and using 2 because they can't take the extra million because there was no distribution. And when we leave there, we also said that we are going to deal with the temporary desal plant that we, in negotiations, got back from Innertech after 9 months of negotiations with them. And that will also help at Colleton and at Maynard's. There will now be also negotiations for the 2 desal plants. We said to the last government, you are asking us to pay too high a price and you are taking water that cannot be distributed straight off. So in a sense, telling a man you want 6 million gallons a day and you can only distribute 2, but then you're paying for nothing. And therefore, I'm satisfied now that the arrangements that are being put in place, Ian's team met with the permanent desalination people. There is a thesis that will also allow us to be able, as I said, we will sewer Licorice Village, Bellevue, coming back around on Station Hill. And we will deal with Bridgetown. But the West Coast, we have agreed to take a different approach as a result of the technical engineers indicating that we should literally do a series of injection wells and do reverse osmosis and 2 small desal plants at Maynard's and at Trent's to deal with that. So we are well on the way to dealing with the water woes of the nation. Citizen safety, this is challenging. And you know, the records are funny because the same Adriel Braffett that wants to talk very much now a lot of nonsense and piffle was the same one telling you that the guns were coming through the port. But having told us that the guns were coming through the port, neither he nor his government did anything, did not lift a finger to get scanners for the port so that you could scan the containers and the barrels and everything. It took this government to put those arrangements in place. And we now have to reap the whirlwind of nobody protecting the boundaries of this country for the latter part, especially between 2010 and 2018 under the Democratic Labour Party. Especially between 2010 and 2018, because that is when we started to see the changes in behavior. And let's go further. If young children leave school and don't get a job for 5 and 6 and 7 years, what do you think they're going to do? The devil is find what? I ain't got no more to say. Do you understand? And that is exactly what we are now fighting. But we promise you in this manifesto that in spite of the economic challenges, that we would increase the number of criminal courts. There are now 5 criminal courts hearing murder cases, because half the problem is if you don't hear a case within 6, 9, 12 months, the witnesses don't remember, evidences go missing, and then next thing you know, a man who you thought was charged with murder walking about the place all about town and doing things again. Cannot work. You have to hold people accountable. We have given the police what they want in terms of additional equipment. Dale will talk to you about that. We have spent more than $15 million in equipment for the police. And we have a whole host of other things to roll out for them this year, from body cams to other things. And that is why we've said, let us work with them and let us work with our young people. Because at the end of the day, the older criminals would tell you too that the problem is access to guns. And we need to get the guns off the streets and out of the hands of people in this country. Stamping out corruption. Whether old corruption, new corruption, future corruption, all corruption. And the government has started. And the one thing I don't do, because I have been too long in the law, I ain't spoiling a law case for a little bit of politics on a Sunday evening. Wait your time. When the time is right, the Attorney General will act in accordance with the law. But we do not believe in literally mixing up things just because you want to make something sound sexy and good on a Sunday evening at a branch meeting. That is not why we said corruption must go. It wasn't to get votes. It was to do right by the people of this country and to remove the cancer of corruption and the thieving that distracted and diverted money from its rightful place to building houses and building roads and doing the things and building and replacing water mains rather than doing the things which the last government did. We've also said to you that we were going to work with our young people, and Colin Jordan is going to launch in this next year the first jobs program for people between 18 to 25. Now, my friends, I ain't went through all of the mission critical. I ain't even went through everything. Santia promised social workers, she now has them. Because we recognize that a guidance counselor is not the person to be able to take up the difficulties of a lot of these deviant young people, or young people who may not be deviant, but who may just want focus and just want guidance and somebody to hold them up and to remind them that they're loved and that they have a purpose in life. We have agreed to give them that. We've also agreed to give Jeffrey a bunch of other nurses to go so that we can take care of the 2,000 most vulnerable patients with chronic NCDs, heart condition, hypertension, kidney failure, and diabetes, so that these community nursing aides can come to the people's houses and make sure, rather than waiting for them to come back to the outpatients clinic. This is a government that is working for you. And that is why I said that when Verla picked up the speech, she picked up the wrong version. And she picked up the speech that was clearly not having in the new policies like the COVID-19 $40 million program or the full details of the BEST program. I haven't talked to you tonight about the LAIRS program that's going to be short there on your boundary, Glenclark. It's predominantly for St. Michael people, but the people on the border of St. George are next door to it. And the same way that a previous Labour Party, under, I believe, Johnny Cheltenham as Minister of Agriculture, helped with the Spring Hall land lease program back in the 1980s. We are determined, and in that way, I don't know if he's here, but we are determined, Peter Phillips is here, to put a system in place where we can give out and lease out allotments, quarter acre, half acre, 1 acre, right there at Lairs. The Williams Group, who owns the land, they are putting in their own water reservoir that will hold anywhere. They were looking at 7 million gallons. We've asked them to look at 10 million gallons of water so that the farmers there will have access to water. The farmers there will be able to micro-lease equipment. So you don't have to go and buy your own tractor. You just lease it for the period of time that you need to use it. And we believe that if we can put farmers there to deal with crops and to deal with ruminants, the goats and the sheep, you don't want the pigs and chickens out there because you've got other issues out there with the water table. I'm being straight. Now that is the kind of thing that will make a meaningful difference, because if you have not yet learned it with COVID, there is no guarantee of supply of food in this world today, and people will break for themselves just as they did with the medical equipment. So that when I say to Verla, get the right copy of the speech, and don't accuse me of warming over soup when you didn't even make the soup yet. But then clearly, Verla has her own challenges. And I am not going to be the one to burst her bubble. She tell me don't get involved in their business. I don't want to get involved in their business because I don't normally surround myself with people who lose. I will tell you this. One thing is for certain, that come next weekend, one of them shall at last be a victor in something in their lives. Because between Twiddly-dee and Twiddly-dum, they will at least have a victory. But Glenclark has now put me to spoil the length of time that their victory can last, because I shall return them to the circle to which they are accustomed, which is the loser's circle, when the election is called for the people of St. George North. But you can't be selfish. Let one of them win next weekend and enjoy that feeling of victory for however long or short it may be. And if it is going to be short, then I suggest that you all get yourself ready to help me send that message. But you know, Verla is special because I just want to give her one piece of advice. An opposition is not only to oppose. And I said this over and over in my time. When Frandel Stewart wanted to bring, and in the end they never brought it, but we met and agreed that the amendments that they wanted to bring, and Billy Miller, you should remember this, with respect to the digital ID card and the Representation of the People Act would have required a constitutional amendment. And on behalf of the Barbados Labour Party, Dale, we met, remember, as a parliamentary party. We expressed what we were comfortable with, what we weren't. We met with the Boundaries Commission, they did the presentations, and we worked together. Now, in the end, they chose not to bring it for the reasons best known to the government. But there are other things. When we were in government and we were dealing with the Caribbean Court of Justice, I met with David Thompson as the Attorney General. And we agreed that Barbados would have a unified position on the Caribbean Court of Justice, and that we would not embarrass the people of Barbados by treating this to being a contentious issue. So that if I have one piece of advice, Verla, and it is that you must first get your facts and pick your battles. Get your facts and pick your battles. And in getting your facts, you forced me, you and Joe forced me, I had to go and buy some cloth to clean it. I wanted it clean again. It got a little tattered because it ain't used for 2 years. But I'm told that I will have cause for it again soon. And this one is just a small one, because how could a whole country be consumed about a government proroguing Parliament? That's the most natural thing. And especially after COVID came and was a game changer. Game changer. So that we have a duty to tell you what we can really do and what may not get done from the manifesto because of COVID. And that is why the government was as meticulous in setting out, not everything, because I didn't tell you about the new geriatric hospital in the debate, in the throne speech, because it's not yet ready to be spoken about. Or a need for a new conference center, we didn't talk about that because it's not yet ready. We only spoke about projects like Sagicor's project there in the valley. You see all of that earthwork that get due for the last 9 months? And they're now getting ready to come out of the ground because they've sold properties and they have to build the houses for the persons in that senior citizens village that they have to build for. We told you about Hyatt. You walk in town now and you see all the properties done and the geotechnical work has started to be able to allow us to deal with that. We told you about the markets that Urban Development Commission doing, Fairchild Street that halfway through, or the Golden Square Freedom Park that is now about to start, or the one down at Brandon's for Barvin, for the vendors. Look at who we are working for in this country. Look at who we are spending the taxpayers' money to make people's lives better. And when you look at all of these things, at the end of the day, we took a decision that we needed to prorogue Parliament and show people that fresh guard was being taken. And in taking that fresh guard, my friends, here is what has happened. That Verla get and tell the people that we mamagayin them and that there has never been a prorogation of Parliament in this country. I still got this. I might need it to remind her of what they did and didn't do. And I got a few other things. I've got our manifesto, our covenant of hope. But I found this. In 1977, on the 1st of November, I was going in Queen's College in first form for the first time. Billy Miller, you were Minister of Education. Sept. 77, you were Health. Louis was Education, right? Because Louis did the 16-year-olds. Who wants to volunteer to drop this to George Street for me tomorrow in an envelope? Saitomia, come. The Parliament of Barbados, the second session of 1976 to 1981. The election took place in September 76. Tom Adams chose to prorogue Parliament. In this particular instance, it was because the Queen was visiting. The second prorogation in 1983 took place again between the 81 and 86 Parliament. So that when you want to talk, Verla, get the facts. Because it is too easy. Not even a political night watchman should get ball out with a full toss. Huh? Not even a political night watchman should get ball out with a full toss. But I am told that things down there bad in truth. And that you and George really ain't speaking to each other. So Saitoma, take this for Verla. And Coolbird, come and take this for George from her. Because I am told that if you leave it for one another, to give one another, they will not give each other. I don't know whether it is true. I can't believe that. I don't want to get into that business. But suffice it to say that, believe you me, this is what the Democratic Labour Party has come to now. And it is a sad, 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 sad thing. But I will not spend any more time talking about them tonight. Suffice it to say that our duty is to you, the people. I have come here tonight to thank Glenn Clark for sterling representation as a member of Parliament. For 26 years, and it will be on that occasion 24 days. 26 years and 24 days. He was elected on the 6th of September, 1994, and he's demitting office on the 30th of September, 2020. Shane, Brian, young ladies, all of your children, Glenn, they need to know that their father has been a man of the people and for the people. Glenn Clark has been a faithful member of this Barbados Labour Party. He knows what it is to serve multiple leaders, starting with Tom Adams, then to Bree St. John, then to Henry Ford. I first met Glenn. I had come back from university, joined the Labour Party within 6-8 months, and worked with Glenn Clark when he was Henry Ford's research assistant. We then ran together, and then he became Owen Arthur's buddy-in-chief. I like? I won't bother to tell you how many fronts he said Glenn was batting on. But the bottom line is that he served with distinction during those 14 years that we constituted the government. And Barbados has a housing record and a record in public works to show from Glenn's time working in those two ministries, both on his own, and then, of course, with different ministers like George Payne. I have every confidence that this party will continue to do right by the people of St. George North. And that is why I look forward, Nigel, to meeting with you in the branch, because now is the time for us to be strategic in what we do. Barbados faces challenges that we've never faced since independence. The world faces challenges that we have not faced since World War II. And how we go forward, not just now, but in the next few months when COVID, even if there's a vaccine, everybody can't get the vaccine at the same time. So that we expect that there's going to be a long tail, at least for another year, possibly a little longer, with respect to COVID. It means that we are going to hold hands and hold each other up. There is going to be nobody who can be allowed to soar while others are dying. We grew up in a country where resilience was built from people acting in solidarity. And words like solidarity, words like partnership, will come to mean more than they have ever meant in the history of this country. And I ask us to give me the space and time to be able to come to you and to show you that we have not just chosen words for the sake of words, that the program that we have put before you in this country is doable, that the team that I have is up to the task of executing, but that the nation that we must lead must recognize that all that we do has to be rooted in partnership and in solidarity. And my friends, over the course of the next few days, Glenn, we will talk. I will issue the formal instructions that Glenn is to be appointed the High Commissioner at Ottawa on behalf of the people of Barbados, and that when that time comes as well, that subject to the agreement being given by the Canadians, that he will then obviously be serving us in a different capacity. For the rest of us, we have some internal work to do. I do not know when the Prime Minister is planning to call this election, but I will talk to her. I'm told that numbers mean a lot to people, so that I am going to study the numbers. I'm going to look at the date, but more importantly, I'm going to meet with the people of the branch of St. George North to make sure that we can put our best foot forward, not just for the people of St. George North, but for the people of Barbados, because it is important that I not only top up the car with oil, top up the car with gas, make sure that the brake pad's working good, but that I take an additional passenger who can help me lift heavy weight along with the rest of this wonderful team that the people of Barbados gave us on the last occasion when we went to it. My friends, I suspect we will be enjoying the air in St. George. I only pray that it will be a little cooler than the rest of Barbados, which is very hot at this point in time. And I look forward walking from Flat Rock to Newbury to the Glebe to Charo Bridge to all over. And I know that men like Dale Marshall, whose navel string is buried in this parish, is looking forward to being able to give whoever the party chooses. And Dwight Sutherland, who, by the way, Dwight, your land and come to shore. Whenever the time comes, Dwight, you're going to have to do some heavy lifting in the parish of St. George, for you shall now become the senior member for St. George after the 1st of October. Ladies and gentlemen, I look forward to seeing you. Good night and God bless.